UK Wine Show, show number 855. Contract growing, rare grape varieties and Hawke's Bay with Quinn from Two Terraces. Hi, my name's Chris Scott.
And I'm Jane Scott.
And together we founded 3050 and the UK Wine Show. And on today's show, we're heading to Hawke's Bay, New Zealand to meet a man who walked out of a 25-year telecoms career in Hong Kong to buy land and plant vines. We're going to be talking about contract growing, rare and unusual grape varieties for New Zealand, and what it really takes to build a vineyard from scratch. Oh, and also we find out what happens when a French ampelographer discovered when he visited the vineyards, his Gamay wasn't what he thinks. I hope you guys have had a good time. I've been pretty busy this week. We've been getting some of our podcasts up on YouTube. We've been working on the Level 3 podcast, and the UK Wine Show is now on YouTube as well. It's an audiogram, so there's no moving pictures yet. We might get to that at some point, but we're little steps at a time. And I've also been working on our new Level 3 Spirits flashcards, just going through them, checking them and making sure they sort of line up with the book and the syllabus. And this weekend and Monday, I'm doing a Level 3 Day 5, and I'm covering for Tom on his Day 5 because he's at the London Wine Fair. Don't forget, London Wine Fair is next week as well. It starts on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
The 18th, 19th and 20th of May at Olympia in London.
Yeah, I'll be going on Tuesday and Wednesday. Obviously, I've got to run that course on Monday.
And I'm going on Tuesday afternoon.
Are you?
I am. I have some meetings ahead of that, so I can't get in there until the afternoon. But that's Tuesday afternoon. I'll catch up with you there, Chris.
Okay, that's cool. Anything else coming up this week, Jane?
Well, at 3050, our team have had a lot of private events that they've been running recently, birthday parties and hen parties, as well as we've done a WSET Level 1 course. And I've been updating our website with our events pages. So I've been working hard on that to actually pull them up to today's standards, because I wrote the pages 10 years ago and they're just not fit for purpose, I realised. So I've been doing a lot of work on our website. It's
amazing, isn't it? You know, when we wrote those pages, it was all about SEO, search engine optimization. Now it's all about trying to craft things for AI.
AI, definitely. Yeah. So, yep, I've been updating those pages, busy beavering away through the entire website. And on WSET, we've got a couple of courses we're prepping for coming up in June. The Level 2 that starts on the 30th of May and the 1st of June. And then a Level 3 starting a week later on Saturday the 6th of June and Monday the 8th of June. Now, the classes are in West London, but you can attend from anywhere in the UK and we'll send the wines to you at home. So do consider that. If you're listening in and you're based outside of London, you can still join 3050 for a WSET course.
Nice thing is, if you're doing the Level 3, you have to come to Twickenham here to my studio to do the exam as well.
That's right, we get to meet students.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. What have we got about Patreon, Jane?
Well, remember, we've got our Patreon wine chat coming up next week. That's on Wednesday, the 20th of May, after the London Wine Fair. But we'll be whizzing back home to host that starting at 7:30 p.m. And we're going to be sharing insights from our recent trip around New Zealand. But we're going to be opening a bottle of Lambrusco. Of course we are. And Chris, this week we had a question for you from our new patron, Wouter. Wouter has a question about the ripening processes in grapes, the phenolic and the sugar acidity balance. He says phenolic ripening is mostly time related and sugar is climate related. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I tell Level 3 students. It's not entirely true. It's a very big simplification, but certainly sugar levels rise a lot in proportion to temperature. It really is. Photosynthesis is definitely proportional to temperature, whereas flavour ripeness is still related to temperature. It's just not as important, and time is a main driver. If you think about shifts between veraison and picking dates, if you're picking on sugar and acidity, they will move quite a lot. If you're picking on flavour, they don't move quite as much. He gave an example in the question, because I've read it, and he was talking about, there's a Roweda he tried at 12.5% potential alcohol, and it had green apple flavours, and then he tried another one that was much riper, but at the same alcohol level. And he was a little bit, well, what's going on here? And I think that was the crux of the question that he wanted to answer. So that's what I'm going to answer, but I'm going to give him lots of information as well about ripening. And probably the easiest explanation of why you could get two wines from the same region with the same alcohol levels but with much riper flavors is simply that one of those crops, the riper flavor crop, was carrying a larger crop load. And what that means is you've got more grapes, roughly the same amount of photosynthesis going on, but you've got the sugars take longer to build up in a much larger number of grapes, which means it takes longer, which means you do get to riper flavors. That's one approach. There is another one that's horrendously complicated, and isn't a level 3. I don't even think it's diploma, but I'm going to go through it as well because I've been wrestling with this in my own mind for years, and I've sort of finally got it to a point where I think I'm pretty comfortable with it. And it's all to do with what's going on during the daytime and the nighttime. During the daytime, you get plants photosynthesizing and growing and developing, and flavors are ripening, all that type of thing. But at nighttime, we often think plants just shut down, but they don't. They're continually going through biological processes, and they're continually ripening as well as one of those processes. There's no sunshine out, so the sugars don't build up. In fact, some of the sugars they build up during the day are actually consumed at nighttime. The other big energy source is malic acid. And what you'll find is if the plant's doing a lot of biological processes at night, it's using the sugars, it's also using up malic acid. Now, at nighttime, the warmer it is, the more these activities happen. So if it's cooler, you get less physiological ripeness going on and you get less consumption of that malic acid. So we often say at nighttime, if you've got cold nighttime temperatures, the wines tend to have more acidity, and that's because they're not consuming that malic acid, which is an energy source to plants at nighttime. In warmer climates, with warmer nights, flavor ripeness and tannin development continues, consuming the malic acid, but also developing riper flavors and riper tannins at night time. So in a warmer climate with warmer nighttime temperatures, you'll have riper fruit and riper tannins. And if you compare that to the region that might have the same daytime temperatures, but much lower nighttime temperatures, in that case, you're going to get plants that have got less flavor development, but they'll have the same alcohol level and they'll have crunchier tannins as well. So it could be in your Roeda case, and I think it's most likely it's to do with crop levels, but it could be that in that Roeda case, the grapes are grown in a location where it's warmer at nighttime. So it could be closer to the Douro River, and that would mean you get warmer nighttime temperatures and you might land up with the same alcohols. That's two examples. There could be another reason as well while it's going on there. But I find that whole thing about the plants continuing their physiological development at nighttime, if it's warm enough, is a really interesting thing, because I've always wrestled with, sometimes you'll get wines from regions that are really hot and the flavors are quite nice. You know, there may be strawberries and raspberries rather than these sort of cooked fruits you sometimes get. And I think the big difference is some regions are hot during the day and some but cold at night, and some regions are hot during the day and hot at night, and those are the ones that have those cooked fruits. And the final answer could be that it's the wine with the green apple flavors is actually grown in a warmer region, so it's ramping up the alcohols a lot quicker, but then you pick the grapes early because they hit the 12.5%, in which case you could land up with wines that have got green apple flavors and 12.5%, whereas in a cooler region, it takes longer for the wines to get to that 12.5%, and you land up with riper flavors.
Thanks, Chris. Well, so I hope you followed that, and listeners as well, if you kept pace with that. Well, so I think Chris will just pop you a little email with that information in there for you to digest at your leisure. Thank you again for joining. And if you're not a member of our Patreon community, do head over to find out what's going on at patreon.com/UK Wine Show. It does help us keep the podcast ad-free and keep us creating fantastic content.
And don't forget, as a patron, you get access to up to 2 flash decks a week. This week they're on Southern France, and level 4 is on Prosecco. But the question is from Southern France. Now, what I want you to do is when you hear the question, it'll sound really complicated, but just think about it and think about what I've just said as well. Okay, Jane, let's have the question.
The question is, Fitu AOC has a coastal region and a cooler inland area at altitude. Which of these produces fuller wines with more body?
Okay, so you've got a coastal region and you've got an inland area at altitude. Which one's going to produce fuller body? Do you have an idea?
I'm going to be thinking it through as we go through the podcast, Chris.
Okay, well, while the listeners are thinking about it, let's have the news.
Well, first up this week, winesearcher.com, the world's largest pricing database for wines and spirits, has been acquired by GLX US Inc., a subsidiary of the Goudet family's investment company Platin Sal. The company will remain headquartered in Auckland, New Zealand, while continuing operations in the UK. Chief Executive Julian Perry said the business is excited about its next phase of growth, particularly after years of investment in technology, data and AI. GLX said it plans to support further expansion, especially in the key US market. If you're not familiar with WineSearcher, they currently list 18 million drinks offers from 35,000 retailers across 130 countries. The platform serves around 60 million users a year and processes millions of daily searches and website requests. The company says it will continue developing AI tools and strengthening its position as a leading source of drinks market intelligence.
Founded in New Zealand in the 1990s, WineSearcher began as a simple wine price comparison site and grew to one of the key pieces of information for pricing data anyway in the drinks trade, particularly for market intelligence. Over time, it's expanded into beers and spirits, as Jane mentioned, and retailers worldwide. Now, in 2023, the company was purchased by Flavour, a spirits-focused drink club and e-commerce platform best known for whiskey subscriptions and online retailing. And as Jane said, the ownership is now passed along to GLX and the Goudet family. And they own things like Pret A Manger and Keurig and Dr. Pepper. Keurig is a coffee pod company in America. I think everybody knows Dr. Pepper, the fizzy drink. And Pret A Manger is the sandwich shop that it started in the UK, but is actually worldwide now. Right, Jane, what's the next story?
Well, President Trump has warned the European Union it must approve a long-awaited trade framework by the 4th of July or face higher tariffs on exports, raising pressure on the wine trade. Trump made the comments as his administration pushed Brussels to finalise last year's deal intended to ease transatlantic tensions and stabilise trade flows. But officials say progress has slowed amid political resistance in several member states. European wine producers in France, Italy and Spain are watching closely, warning that higher tariffs could hit US sales, as well as raise prices for importers and squeeze margins across the distribution chain during key summer trading months. The July 4th deadline now leaves negotiators a narrow window to secure approval, with analysts saying failure to reach agreement could trigger a fresh round of tariffs affecting a wide range of European exports entering the US if talks stall further in coming weeks and months.
Let's face it, the EU are not in a hurry to ratify this deal. After all, it was done with a gun to their head with the threat of tariffs. And those tariffs that were threatened to get this deal are no longer valid. In fact, they're deemed illegal. So that leverage is gone. Any new tariffs after the failure of his last set of tariffs will be slow and piecemeal, which will almost certainly come after the November election when Congress is likely to flip to the Democrats. And my understanding is that in the US, all tariffs are controlled by Congress and they give the president authority through statute to impose tariffs. They can withdraw all that just as easily. So if I was the EU, I would be slow walking that one. What's the last story, Jane?
Well, away from Europe, South Africa's 2026 wine harvest reached 1.37 million tonnes, placing it firmly back in the upper middle of the country's recent historical range and marking the strongest crop since 2022. The figure is above last year's smaller vintage and broadly in line with South Africa's typical production band of around 1.2 to 1.5 million tonnes. That puts 2026 closer to a normalised recovery year after more variable and weather-affected seasons earlier in the decade, rather than a record-breaking peak or a structural expansion in output.
And I think the key takeaway here is stability. Volumes are back to a normalised range, giving wineries more predictability and supply and supporting exports. It's very hard to hold up exports when you've got hardly any product. Rightio, it's Friday, Lambrusco.
Woohoo! What have we got this week, Chris?
Well, we've got another wine from Chenin Blanc. This time it's their La Reserva. Now, this is a Charmant or tank method, but interestingly, they've kept it in the tank for 12 months on the lees. So this is a wine that's been aged in tank for 12 months on the lees. And I'm not quite sure what to expect here. I expect it'll be slightly creamy and we probably won't get any atolic flavours, but we'll see. So shall we have a crack at it?
Let's open it up.
The grapes are 100% Lambrusco de Subara and it's 11.5%, and it's classed as a dry rosé, possibly / red wine. As we all know, Lambrusco is technically red.
I'm interested to see what colour this one will be, Chris.
I think it's going to be light. You can't tell because the bottle's all dark green, aren't they?
Well, not all of them, but yes, this one is.
It's a Spumante, so it's got a little bit more fizz than some of the Fizzantes we had earlier.
That's not even pink. That's more white, Chris. Shocking. Crikey, I am astounded, totally. Yeah, I think I've completely got Lambrusco wrong all these years. I mean, there's nothing red or pink about that.
Except for it's made with red grapes.
Smells lovely.
There is
Smells quite yeasty.
Yeah.
You know, it's got that brioche bready.
It does have italic flavours, doesn't it?
I'd love to trick one of our friends with this wine.
Especially the guy. We won't name his name, but
we won't name him.
But he said, no, red wine, no, it's wrong. Maybe we'll keep this for film night next weekend.
That's really yummy, Chris.
It's quite fresh. Yeah, it's very fresh. I mean, it's got a real zip of acidity to it.
Pretty Moorish.
Pretty Moorish?
I'm really enjoying this.
I'm getting a little bit of pear in there, a little bit of red fruits.
Citrus? A little bit of citrusy?
Yeah, especially in the mouth. Yeah, and it does. It has a more than a whiff of autolic character to it, which is, I mean, it's pretty good. It's lighter than a Provence rosé, would you say?
Oh, totally. I'm not getting a lot of pink here, Chris. It looks just like a white wine.
A dark white wine.
Yeah. Yes, it has got depth.
Yeah.
Golden, I would say.
Yeah. Although it's more onion skin.
Well, I'm certainly enjoying it. Thanks, Chris.
Cool. Well, we'll call this a winner. So that is the Chenin Blanc La Reserva, 100% Lambrusco Subara. Okay, next up, we've got a reminder of this week's Patreon flashcard question. And the question is, Jane.
Fitu AOC has a coastal region and a cooler inland area at altitude. Which one produces fuller wines with more body?
Right, we will give you the answer to that at the end of the show. But next up, we've got our interview with Ian Quinn. As I said at the top of the show, he is the co-founder of Two Terraces in Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. And Ian spent 25 years in the telecom industry before making a dramatic change and moving from Hong Kong with his wife Linda to plant up this 20-hectare vineyard here in the Heretaunga Plains in Hawke's Bay. Last week we spoke to Ian about the Albarino grape variety in New Zealand. This week we are going to be talking about the other grape varieties growing. We also mentioned the word ampelographer. Now, and I jumped in there and had a chat about it without ever explaining what it is. And an ampelographer is someone who, before DNA testing was around, would go around and tell you what varieties of grape variety you're growing. So each grape variety has a unique leaf structure. And an ampelographer will look at that structure and go, oh, this is a Chardonnay, this is a Shiraz, and that type of thing. And that was what you used to do before you had DNA testing going on. So let's have a listen to what Ian has to say. My name's Chris Scott and I'm here with Ian Quinn. How are you, Ian?
Good, thanks.
We are here, and normally I'd say sunny Hawke's Bay, but it's murky Hawke's Bay today. I'm quite relieved, actually. My suntan is working quite nicely. I've done the proper New Zealand thing. I've been sitting out in the sun, and now I'm going to, when I get to Christchurch, I'm going to do a mole map.
Yeah, we've had quite a warm, very, very warm spring, and I think we're going back into another warm phase at the moment. So the occasional bit of cloud and a bit cooler is definitely appreciated.
You might hear in the background as we're talking, you'll hear the odd bang going off. It's not people shooting bunny rabbits. It's autumn really, and the birds are just keen to get into the fruit.
Yeah, we're just at that stage where everything's getting riper and we need to keep it away from the birds.
Yeah, but it is a biological thing, you know. The grapes grow so that the birds eat them.
Exactly, yeah.
The grapes really want the birds to eat them, and the birds really want to eat the grapes. It's a bit mean, really. Right, what I want to talk about today is, let's talk a wee bit about your business here in Two Terraces. We'll unpick what your business is and how it works. But Ian, when did you guys start Two Terraces?
We bought the land in 2015. I guess if you took a step back from there, I used to work in telecommunications and I've been doing that for 25 years. Started doing a certificate in wine through a local tertiary organisation as a way to get my mind off the work, and sort of decided once I was sort of exposed to the wine world that I'd really like to do a second career and do something else with the second half of my working life. So at that stage we were living in Hong Kong.
This is you and
Linda.
Linda, your wife?
Yep. Yes, Linda and I were living up in Hong Kong, decided to come back and plant a vineyard, and so bought the land in 2015, planted 10 hectares in 2016, another 10 in 2018. The idea behind that size was it was big enough that we didn't need permanent staff. We can farm it with a single tractor and a single operator.
Who's the operator?
Myself. But it also kind of shapes the way the business works because although we have enough economy of scale to work on it full time, it does mean that we can't compete with growers that are sort of 80, 100 or hundreds of hectares in scale.
So a lot of people normally when they go, oh, I'm going to get into the wine trade, the first thing they do is say, I'm going to create this brand and I'm going to make wine, I'm going to sell it to the world, and they're going to beat a path to my door. You've gone down the contract growing, which is a little bit different. Why did you go down that route as opposed to maybe becoming a wine producer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think getting into the wine industry has always got a certain amount of financial risk with it. And I guess in terms of planting a vineyard and growing, at least you've got that security of owning the land. You know, you're not sort of putting all of your work and investment into a brand. So we always figured we had the land to fall back on. And also, if you go really far back, back to my childhood, when I was growing up, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to be a park ranger. We used to do a lot of tramping or hiking in New Zealand. So being a national park ranger had an appeal as a 7 or 8 year old. Did a lot of gardening and horticulture at school, so farming was sort of quite of interest. It was around the era also that things like the Apple II and personal computers started coming out, and I got hooked on the technology cycle instead. So I spent 25 years doing that in the networking and telecommunications space, and so it's kind of ironic that as a second career you come back to one of those things that was sort of implanted in you as a kid almost.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same actually. I'm an electrical engineer, but power systems, high voltage stuff.
Right.
But I've always liked education. And so it's strangely enough, I left electrical engineering and my wine business is an educational business now. So we're back, you go back to that same sort of thing really.
I've always enjoyed learning new things, and one of the things that was attractive about viticulture was I could easily see 20 years of trying stuff and learning new things. Yeah. It's not a static environment at all. So if you like learning, then it's ideal.
Yeah, that's my buzz. I always like learning new things. Sometimes I don't even care what it is I'm learning, as long as it's something new and I'm playing around with it. It's good fun.
Yep.
That's half the fun, really, isn't it? Just the learning process.
Yeah.
We're actually in Hawke's Bay, and Hawke's Bay's got Napier, and there's a lot of Art Deco around. I spent a lot of time last night looking at Jacob's Ladders. Do you know what that is?
Oh, no.
It's cool. It's right out of Frankenstein. You get 2 wires that come up, and you have a spark, high voltage sparking between the 2, and it goes woof.
Right.
Woof. And it works Art Deco. I'm I'm that close to building one when I get home. I've just got to worry about it because you have to have 30,000 volts to do it, and it's a bit of a fire risk. But
Yeah, I think Napier has the real Art Deco theme to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that came from the 1931 earthquake.
Yeah.
And a lot of the town was rebuilt in that Art Deco style after.
yeah, I'm loving it. I did think I was into steampunk. Now I'm into deco punk. Okay, let's get back to where we're talking about with the wine. Sorry about that, a little bit of a sidetrack there. So you guys set yourself up as contract growers. You're growing a number of different grape varieties. We'll talk about Albarino in depth later on. One of the grapes, apart from Albarino, I'm sort of been interested in is Chenin Blanc from Hawke's Bay. You've got a little bit of that planted here. What attracted you to Chenin Blanc?
I guess when we chose varieties to plant, so we picked Chardonnay because it's something we're passionate about, love Chardonnay, and it's a well-known sub-region for growing good Chardonnay with the diurnal shift and freshness. We planted a little bit of Syrah, again because we loved it, and then the Gamay and the Chenin we planted not because we had drunk a lot of it. It was actually more because the people that we wanted to work with were keen on getting a source of those two varieties. With Chenin's had its heyday in terms of volume in New Zealand, probably back in the 70s and 80s, and it's really declined, partly as a lot of the New Zealand industry has gone to Sauv Blanc, and Chenin, a lot of the old Chenin was sort of really overcropped and pretty bland. So what we're left with in New Zealand now is people that are growing Chenin are passionate about it, and it's really being targeted at premium quality end of the market.
One of the Chenins I had in Gisborne was with Kirsten from Matafero. I think I upset her a little bit because she makes her Chenin in her estate range on her ladder, hierarchy ladder, and it's basically an unadulterated Chenin. It's just basically, ferment it and stick in a bottle type of thing. And I told her I was a little bit disappointed, not because the Chenin wasn't very nice, but I thought it had so much more potential to be fiddled around with and just develop layers that you can do with Chenin, and the climate seemed really nice for Chenin. It's like, it's right in, if you think about, you've got Loire Valley, Vouvray, and then you've got sort of, Stellenbosch or Paarl, or any of those sort of South African, and you're right in that middle of that climatic range. So I would have thought Chenin would be and it holds on to its acidity beautifully, it's susceptible to botrytis, so it maybe not be a good thing for you guys or not, I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely holds its acidity. I guess its weakness is the big bunches.
But when you say big, you mean big dense bunches, so you get mildew problems?
Yeah, as it gets riper, sort of really don't want too much rain. Don't want the berries to swell up and bring in that risk of botrytis. So most years we don't have too much of an issue, but it's something we've got to keep an eye on. In terms of winemaking, we've got quite a few different approaches in terms of what people are fermenting in. So Gordon Russell was the winemaker at Esk Valley. He left there a couple of years ago. We'd made a few Chenins under the Esk label with him, but really we're still searching for the perfect season, perfect fruit. You probably never get it, but we definitely had unfinished business. So we worked with Gordon's daughter as part of a collaboration called Three Fates, and had another crack at it in 24 and 25. So Gordon's approach is very much around large, we call them puncheons, but sort of 500 litre neutral oak, with a lot of lees stirring to kind of build texture. Other people, the East Topes, have been making Chenin with us since 2018. They've used a combination of eggs and again also older
Amphora clay eggs.
Actually concrete eggs, and also now more that sort of neutral oak, big format, 500 litre puncheons. Amwars, Amy Farnsworth is doing Chenin and Amphora, so a mixture of Amphora and barrels, and then kind of bringing that together to create that complexity as well.
We were talking to a fellow called Brent Lim a couple of days ago, and he was talking about Gamay. Because Hawke's Bay is known for Syrah and Merlot-dominated Bordeaux blends. and he was saying that as people are moving away from reds to more white dominated at the moment, that one of the opportunities is to make a lighter style of red. Is that why you put Gamay in there, or was it a client wanted Gamay and you thought, oh, I'll give him Gamay?
More someone that we wanted to work with that was after Gamay. Yeah, so we ended up planting that, and Rod and Emma East Hope also put their hands up as well. Yeah, sort of back around 2016 or so, we could see a lot of interest from sommeliers and Gamay as an alternate variety, different story to tell. Yeah, so it was that kind of combination of what we could see in the market and the winemakers that we wanted to work with.
And the guys who are making Gamay for you, are they going down the carbonic maceration style of sort of entry-level Beaujolais, or are they making more of a cru style with maybe partial carbonic or even just normal fermentation?
Combination of different approaches. We've got one winemaker, Organised Chaos, which is very carbonic centric. It's really interesting sort of seeing the fruit go into tanks, sit for 6-7 days, and then they go to press it off. And Hayden always says it's one of the favourite days in the winery when they get all those aromas through that pressing process.
Do you get all the banana and all the candied fruit?
Yeah, definitely a real confectionery aromas, and that sort of settles down with once it goes through fermentation and with a bit of age. But then we also have other people. East Hopes are really chasing a more serious cru style Gamay. Amouage again is doing Gamay and amphoras, and both Amouage and East Hope sort of play with a fair bit of whole bunch just to build some of that complexity and a more serious element to it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all of those wines, I think if they're chilled a little bit over summer, they're great drinking, and it's kind of slightly chilled red market is something that people are trending towards.
Yeah, the other grape variety you can do that with is Pinot Noir. I understand you've got a little bit of Pinot Noir. I wouldn't have thought Hawke's Bay is a big Pinot Noir area, but what's the story there?
Yeah, there are a couple of producers several producers doing really good Pinot. Ours wasn't intentional. When we planted every variety we have here, we have at least 2 different selections. The idea there was to be able to help winemakers build complexity in their wine. When it came to selecting Gamay, there was only one commercially available selection, a French one called 509. So we ordered that, and then we were looking around for options to get a second selection from somewhere. And we were really fortunate. There was a vineyard down in South Island that allowed us to take some cuttings from their vineyard. Yeah, so we planted those out. We had a couple of years ago an amplorographer, someone that specialises in identifying.
Do you know, I was trying to remember the name of that a month ago, and I just could not remember the name. Amplorographer?
Amplorographer, yeah.
Yeah.
Guy came out from France to certify the 509 as true to type. Happened to see the other selection that we had there and said, I don't think that's Gamay. And it actually, DNA testing turned out to be Pinot Noir.
How much Pinot Noir have you got that you thought was Gamay?
Probably it's less than a hectare.
Okay.
And I think the way it's evolved, it's an interesting story. And people love the wine, even though they know some of it's Pinot now. So the winemakers are carrying on with it. I guess in retrospect, we probably should have twigged a bit earlier. In the sense that they 2 selections grow quite differently. One's very upright. And in the winery, the Gamay is quite often really light and lifted. And the thing we liked about the second selection, which turned out to be Pinot, was it sort of had a darker, broodier drive to it. And you put those 2 together and you get that complexity, both lifted floral elements of, say, some of the lighter crus, and powerful component that's maybe Morgon or some of those more intense crus.
Okay. It's interesting you say that. I mean, if you look at Gamay and Pinot Noir, and even Grenache, and you go, okay, they're all got that red fruits, they're all just light styles of wines. Grenache obviously has different alcohol and acidity structure to it, but Gamay and Pinot Noir, even though Beaujolais they always try to pretend Burgundy is all about Pinot Noir. Beaujolais is technically part of Burgundy. It's a dirty little secret the French don't like to admit.
Yeah.
The famous Burgundy is actually a lot of Gamay in there. And if you include all the Nouveau, probably a big percentage of it is Gamay.
Yeah, I like the way the East Topes talk about it. Just reading off the back of the bottle. In 1395, Philippe the Bold banished the Gamay variety from Burgundy in favour of Pinot Noir. For the next 600 years, Gamay languished in the shadow of Pinot Noir. Not anymore. Part of the story around them continuing to put the two together in the same wine.
Nice. Okay, Ian, I think we'll wrap it up there. That was really interesting talking about where you're coming from and also some of the unusual grape varieties. I think next week I want to talk a bit about the different clones of Chardonnay.
Great, thanks Chris. It's been really good to have you here.
Okay, that ends our interview with Ian and pretty much the show this week. Obviously, we've got to get the answer to this week's question. And the question is, Fitu AOC. Fitu is a AOC in Languedoc-Roussillon. It's actually on the coastal area, and it's also got a cooler inland area that's at altitude. Now, which of these regions produces the more full-bodied wines? Is it the coastal area or the inland area, Jane? Have you got any thoughts on the logic you might use?
Well, I'm thinking about the alcohol, the level of alcohol giving the wine body.
Yep, that's right.
I'm thinking maybe the coastal region have fuller-bodied wines.
Yeah, you're pretty close. So that's what I would say as well. So the bit by the coast, it's warm during the day and warm at night, but altitude gives you coolness. So it's going to be cooler at altitude.
During the daytime?
During the daytime, because it is cooler. But it could be, the key thing here is that at nighttime, the diurnals, the nighttime temperature is very low. And as we were talking about earlier about malic acid, the plant won't consume malic acid if it's cold enough, which means the acidity in the cooler regions will be much higher, and acidity robs the wine of body. So I think that the coastal region, warmer nights, and have fuller bodied.
So I think I got that right, didn't I? Because I did say coastal region.
Yep.
I did.
Yeah. You got it right.
I didn't quite know the actual reasoning behind that. Well, thanks, Chris, and listeners. I hope you got the question right too. And thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And a big thank you to our Patreons for your support. If you'd like to join them, visit patreon.com/UK Wine Show.
Until next week, cheers and good drinking.
The UK Wine Show is a weekly podcast brought to you by 3050, the wine tasting company. The show is produced by Chris Scott and the news is read by Jane Scott. To listen to other shows, visit ukwineshow.co.uk. Thank you for listening.